So now we're officially kicking off the event. I'm Talia Schwartz, president of Safe Streets, Jersey City. Co-moderating the panel with me is Tony Borelli, vice president of Bike JC, and Jimmy Lee, who may be coming back on stage to join us, is also a trustee of Safe Streets, Jersey City. We're honored that you all made it here this evening and gave up some of your precious time to engage and listen with the candidates that are here on stage as they discuss the safety and transportation issues here in Jersey City. Vision Zero is the audacious idea that all traffic deaths are preventable, that human mistakes shouldn't be fatal, though through the redesign of our streets, through traffic enforcement, and through education. Jersey City adopted Vision Zero in 2018 with the goal of 0 deaths or serious injuries by 2026. We have seen the city take a lot of action. They've added new bike lanes this year, many new protected intersections, and even a recent increase in traffic enforcement. We are safer than before. Our next mayor, through budgeting, management, and hiring, will be responsible for continuing this work until we achieve 0 deaths and all people of all ages and all abilities can safely traverse our streets. We are truly grateful to all the candidates who have shown up and are willing to share their views with us this evening. We have placeholder cards for the candidates who were uncommitted, but maybe they'll join us throughout the evening. We're not sure. They said they might. In the interest of time, we're going to dive right into the questions. Quickly outlining our rules. Each candidate will get 2 minutes for an opening remark. Then we'll have 2 minutes for responding to questions. There's a timer over here, and we'll try and keep to the time. And then we're going to have one quick kind of lightning round where you'll have shorter answers expected. And then if we have time in the end, we'll have some audience questions, and we hope we'll get to that. So let's start.
Yeah, closing statement.
Oh, and then we'll have 1 minute of closing statements at the end. Apologies. So we're going to start with the opening statements. We're in alphabetical order. So we're going to start with Mr. Ali, and then with each question, we're going to start one person to the left and go through a rotation. So
Great.
You can start. Please set the timer for 2 minutes for Mr. Ali.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for being here. The topic we're talking about is near and dear to, I think, every single one of us when we think about the streets of Jersey City, particularly as the city has changed. But I want to take this opportunity to sort of introduce myself as we get into all the sort of issues related to traffic safety. My name is Musab Ali. I grew up in Jersey City. I went to public schools here. I went to PS6 in the Heights for elementary school. I went to Academy 1 middle school, and then I went to McNair Academic for high school. When I was 20 years old, I was elected onto the Jersey City Board of Education and had many of my meetings right here in this auditorium, so it feels like a coming home moment for me. By the time I was 23, I was elected as the president of the Board of Education in the middle of a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic. And I was tasked with figuring out how to reopen our schools and manage a $75 million budget deficit. We got through that process, but while I was dealing with those challenges, I had a challenge of my own. Because when I was 23 years old, I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. I'm here today, 4 years cancer-free, and when I was diagnosed, I said to myself, look, if I get a second chance, I want to dedicate it to public service. And so I'm here asking the people of Jersey City to give me an opportunity to serve. And so when we think about the solutions to the problems we have in this city, the most important thing is affordability. And so our plan calls for building more housing, especially more affordable housing. But encompassed with that is the reality that we will be increasing density across the city. And so we want to make sure that we can build a fast and free bus system that connects this entire city. But that also means that we need to make sure that our streets are safe. Because my vision for Jersey City is a place where families of all income can live, but a place where a child can walk safely to school, and streets and sidewalks belong to everyone. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Christina Freeman, and I'm running for mayor of Jersey City. I am a mom. I am an honors student at NJCU, and just to chime in, I may have to cut out a little early tonight. It's midterms, and I have to get my papers in and attend class. So if you see me dipping out of here, it's because of that and for no other reason. And I'm a police officer. I've been a police officer in Jersey City for 6 years and a lifelong resident here. I'm not from politics. I'm not a politician. I am a public servant. I'm a person from the people. I have seen the struggles of Jersey City. I have seen the good and the bad, in addition to experiencing them myself. And with that, I decided to run. My platform is based off of affordable housing. As we know, it's expensive to live here in Jersey City, and I have some ideas in terms of creating more housing in terms of ownership and also income-based housing. Youth services and programs. Our youth are our future. However, for the past years, the youth have been overlooked here in Jersey City, and I intend to support them through their youth to become stable young adults within this city. Public safety, which is near and dear to me. Again, it has improved. However, there's a lot of areas that also need tending to, some of which I intend to incorporate as more safety features out on the roadways, more police presence, and then also community interactions with the police department and making the decisions for the community in which they want to see. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm County Commissioner Bill O'Day, lifelong resident of Jersey City. I've had the blessing to be able to serve as an elected official for 35 years of my life, 8 years on the Jersey City Council, and 27 years as a county commissioner. Additionally, I've served as an executive director of a not-for-profit agency that builds and develops affordable housing, makes grants and loans to small businesses, especially minority and women-owned businesses. Throughout my political career on 5 separate occasions, I've run against and beat the political machine. 1985, 1989, 1997, 1998, and 2002. In fact, in 2002, the chairman of the Democratic Party was then Congressman Bob Menendez. And I was able to take that party on then and beat them. So I've always maintained my independence as an elected official. Those from the organization sponsoring this event tonight know that I'm never afraid to stand up to the people that are in power. And in fact, to get the county to apply for a Vision Zero grant, they came to me and approached me. And I was able to influence and put pressure, I wouldn't say embarrass, those in power to make sure they applied for that grant and that they received that grant. So as a candidate for mayor, I know how to get affordable housing built. I know how to work with the community. I know how to be independent and stand up for what I believe in. And I know how to fight and speak out and not be afraid to speak out when I have to. I love this city. I pride myself on working 24/7, available, accessible. I may be a little bit crazy, but I give everybody my personal cell phone number. And I often get text messages and calls late into the evening, later than I should. But I believe that when you want to be an elected official, those are the responsibilities that you have to take on. And as mayor, I'll continue to do that. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is James Solomon. I'm one of the City Council members representing downtown Jersey City. It's my honor to be here. Thank you to my colleagues, and thank you to the hosts for having us, and thank you to all of you for taking your time out to think and listen and push us on how to have a safer Jersey City. So my kind of story in starting to public service starts about 10 years ago. At that time, I had just gotten married. A month after the wedding, I was diagnosed with cancer. I'm blessed to be in remission. But when that happened, it was just like life is short. And you really got 2 things. And it was just like the 2 things I wanted. It was family and it was public service. And so I'm blessed today to get to do both. I'm blessed to have 3 beautiful daughters, Camila, Corinne, and Noelle, who are 7, 5, and 3. Go to school here in public school here in Jersey City, walk our streets, and then I'm blessed to get to give back in Jersey City through the City Council. And when I ran for office, one of the leading reasons I ran was I had been walking the streets of Jersey City, and I can't count the number of times that I had sort of a rage-inducing moment, whether that was somebody running through a stop sign and almost hitting me, whether that was somebody parking in the middle of a crosswalk with just complete impunity. And I was like, we don't have a commitment to Vision Zero. And at the time, things have changed, but at the time, Mayor Fulop had not committed to Vision Zero. And so we get into office, and immediately we all start moving in the right direction. Since that time, Jersey City committed to Vision Zero. In downtown, all of the major streets that were on the high injury network have had improvements, whether they be road diets or bump outs or other forms of traffic calming, but it is absolutely not enough. The streets are still unsafe. We've had incredible tragedies on our streets, and we need a mayor fully committed to realizing Vision Zero. I will be that mayor. I'm happy tonight to give you that vision of how we deliver on Vision Zero, make our streets safe, and deliver a Jersey City that works for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We're going to start with the first question. I was supposed to say beforehand, and I'll just remind everyone, this is a forum and not a debate. So the goal here is really to hear your perspectives on these questions, and I'm sure you've been in many forums, and keep your decorum. Okay. Sorry, the time for these questions is 2 minutes. First question is about Vision Zero. In 2019, Jersey City adopted a Vision Zero plan with the goal of eliminating road deaths and serious injuries by 2026, and a bike master plan to build a network of protected bike lanes throughout the city. Already this year, we have had 2 deaths on Jersey City streets caused by turning vehicles. Both traffic victims were crossing with the walk sign in crosswalks. As mayor, what are the first 2 actions you will take to make Jersey City safer for pedestrians, cyclists, and micromobility users? Please only reference ideas or improvements that the Jersey City mayor has control over, not state-level solutions. And we're going to start with Ms. Freeman.
So one of my ideas to control the traffic, which I've noticed that as well with the cross signal going off at the same time that the green light is going. So 2 things that day one, or not day one, but within that first month, to make sure that we change the speed, not the speed limit, excuse me, the red lights. No turn on red, that's something that I am for, just because, again, it can prevent people from getting hit while trying to cross, especially no turn on red on the right when they're trying to make a right. And then also altering the time to where the street light and the crosswalk are not going at the same time. That's a big issue I run into. I'm usually out the door 5:30 in the morning, and I run into it all the time to where I'm turning, and then I realize that there's someone in the crosswalk. So those are 2 areas that I would address in terms of safety features to make sure that the pedestrian and vehicles are not running into one another while they're trying to make their ways about their day. Thank you.
So the first thing I'll do is allocate more money, because in order to implement a plan, you've got to have the money to do it. And I know that currently there's probably only $3 million a year allocated, so whether it's bond dollars, whatever federal dollars we can additionally get, but even local dollars, we need to speed up the next phases and the next steps of those areas that need bump outs, that need traffic calming, that we need to reduce the road diet. I committed a long time ago to look at JFK Boulevard as one of the areas, and we are now moving forward with the BRT study, which is supposed to go out for proposals before the end of the year. So committing more money is one of the first ones. Bringing back a real traffic squad, because part of the problem is, without enforcement, the best plan in the world is going to have problems. The speeding results from no enforcement. The turns on red result from no enforcement. Back a number of years ago, and you may remember, we had red light cameras on the boulevard. And I'm not supposed to speak about the state, but there was a time that we had them. And when we had them, we took the revenue from that and rededicated that revenue towards traffic patrols and traffic summonses issued in the boulevard and even along West Side Avenue. So lobbying for those changes, as mayor, that I can only lobby, putting the dollars in place for the infrastructure, committing to the rest of the network. And there have been times as a county commissioner when I went up against my board and was willing to commit areas along JFK Boulevard to connect part of the network. And as someone who has been on that board, I think as mayor, I would be able to now say, as mayor, I'd like to see those connected parts of the road so we can make that bike network make in the areas where it needs to happen, including the one-way streets on Summit Avenue and Baldwin Avenue.
So engineering, infrastructure, enforcement. Those are the two things: engineering and infrastructure, and enforcement. So starting with engineering and infrastructure. Our infrastructure department is woefully underfunded for the danger that is on our streets. So I have a commitment to increase the current funding $1 million annually to hire 5 new engineers in the department plus the support staff necessary, and then annually $10 million of capital funds that will go to the roadway improvements on an annual basis. And what does that allow us to do? It's going to allow us to systematically, road by road, starting with the ones that are most dangerous identified by the data, is implement complete streets transformation. So that will include bump outs, that will include protected bike lanes, it will include traffic calming, raised intersections, all of the infrastructure changes that we need. And if we have the in-house engineering staff, we will start to build the knowledge we need to move things forward. Small things, I shouldn't say small, important things like center line hardening. So the left turns that Talia referenced leading to deaths are oftentimes caused by vehicles taking a left too quickly. And you can put a center line in the middle of the intersection, or not the intersection, but right before you turn, so force people to take a slow, deliberate left instead of the quick lefts that lead oftentimes to serious crashes. And then enforcement. Take Jersey Avenue, for example. We put in place stop signs that didn't exist about 5 years ago. Those stop signs reduced serious T-bone crashes by about 50%. But Jersey Avenue is still not safe, and it is not safe because cars are routinely running those stop signs. So we must have enforcement. So I am committed to, on day one, creating a traffic enforcement division within Jersey City Police and staffing it with 20 officers. The current public safety director has publicly in meetings refused to do so. He will be fired, and we will have leadership that creates traffic enforcement in Jersey City. Thank you.
It's sometimes hard at these forums to sound different than some of your other candidates, because I think we agree on a lot of these issues around traffic safety. So I'm going to do my best here to give something else. Although, I agree on the infrastructure, I agree about the enforcement. I think enforcement is critical, and public safety across the board here in Jersey City. But I think one of the other things that we need to think about is another re-education campaign across Jersey City. Because I think the people in this room understand how important Vision Zero is. They understand the purpose of Vision Zero. They understand that one life is too much and that we cannot risk any more lives to traffic fatalities. But I think there's a lot of people in Jersey City who still don't understand the purpose behind some of this infrastructure improvements. And I know that because I'm someone that's grown up in Jersey City. I have some of my friends that I have these debates with. And they say, look, we're losing a parking spot, right? Why is it that you're putting up these cones that are useless, that people keep running over? And I want them to understand what is the purpose behind what we're doing, right? Why does Vision Zero exist? Why do we have to enforce the traffic laws? And how do we transform culture? Because I think right now, when you look at Jersey City and you look at our surrounding towns, there's a clear distinction in culture. If you drive in Union City, or if you drive in Bayonne, you know the way that people drive on John F. Kennedy Boulevard. But when you're in Jersey City, it's the Wild West. And that exists because we have a culture here that allows people to imagine that the real speed limit on JFK is 40 miles an hour. And so I think it's really important that we have the education campaign. We talk to people across the city, make sure they understand why we're trying to build these new bike lanes and how this actually makes traffic better, right? A lot of people have this misconception. They're like, hey, you're taking away these lanes. It's going to make it worse for me. It's going to be harder for me to get around town. But we need them to understand, actually, this is going to be better for traffic if we're able to have other means of transportation all around the city.
Thank you, candidates. For our next question, most of you basically just addressed this quite well, but I'm going to ask it anyway and give you the chance to elaborate and ask for some specifics. Jersey City does spend $3 million out of a $750 million budget on infrastructure. The result that things don't get maintained, the quick build improvements get worn away and destroyed. I think I know, but do you believe we need to spend more on infrastructure? But also, if yes, where do you propose we find those funds? And then, if you'd like, you can elaborate on what kind of priorities you think infrastructure should have if they are better funded. What would you like to see a lot more of, something new, totally different from that department? And we'll start with Mr. O'Day.
So, where do we find the funds? We just have to either increase spending. If we increase spending in one line item, we have to reduce spending in another line item, or we get new revenue so we don't have to raise taxes. But the reality is, if we're committed to doing something, we can't be locked in to say, but we only have so much dollars to do it. And obviously, there's not enough funding currently in there because the plan is moving forward too slowly. So I'm not sure it's $1 million a year. It sounds like a pretty nice number. Round numbers always sound good. But certainly 25, 30% annual increase in that budget would make a lot of sense. Bringing on more professionals makes a lot of sense. And capital bonding. One of the problems Jersey City has is their bond rating has gone down twice. So maybe the county needs to look at other bonding entities, whether it's the Hudson County Improvement Authority or a state bonding agency with a much better bond rating. The lower the bond interest, the more money you can bond for the same amount of cost. So those are two commitments to do. Expanding the areas where we do traffic calming, where we do bump outs, where we do road diets. Certainly you've got a priority order. And if we can move 2 years into 1 year to do that, I think that's a simple formula that makes a lot of sense to be able to utilize that as a way of doing it. I like raised intersections. I've had fights on the county level because they tell me you're not supposed to do them, but I'd love to do them, and I can think of places that have them. I've ridden in a couple of places in Newark that had them, so I'm not sure why you can't do them. So I'm a big fan of them. I know Duncan and JFK, because it's in my district and it's a county road, is a big one, but that's a county road. But I'm sure within the priority of raised intersections, that would be there. But a lot more capital money, 25 to 30% a year increase in operating are two ways for the dollars to be spent properly.
Sure. I can elaborate, I think, on where my numbers come from. So the $1 million in operating comes from fully funding the request that the infrastructure department made to the mayor and the administration at the start of this year. And so it includes the salaries that you would have for 4 new full-time engineers, additional engineering aides, the benefits that come with that, healthcare, pensions, all of those additional costs, as well as some additional money for sort of the annual infrastructure improvements. And once that happens, I think there's a couple of things you can do that are really important. Anytime a road is repaved, it must be repaved with safe streets infrastructure. That is one of the things that Hoboken has done so well to create their track record now, which is, I think, nearly 7 or 8 years without a pedestrian or any fatality on their roads. And so this means when you're doing a repaving, you will have the engineering capacity to put the bump outs in, to redo the drainage on every road, to have the money to be able to do the concrete work, which is expensive. So that is the type of that's why you need those in-house engineers, and that's where the number comes from. And then the capital money. Jersey City does not do an annual capital budget. That has to change. So when we're in office, every year we will be determining what our capital dollars go to on an annual basis, going out to bond, getting those money in. And because we haven't done it annually, it's been very project-based or politically motivated. We haven't had this systemic way of saying, okay, which roads are getting repaved when and how. And so by doing that $10 million annually, you're going to start a process to ensure that we have real ability to repave and make each complete street improvement move forward. One last final thing, just building off what Musab said, if you have a big engineering staff, you have more ability to do genuine community engagement. And as we've seen in Jersey City, we desperately need to build trust across all communities when we're talking about our roads. And so having the full-time staff who can go to communities, who can show up at events, instead of our staff today, which is so overworked and overburdened, I think would be a really important part of why we need to put the money in extra engineers. Thank you.
Look, I think when it comes to revenue, one of the easiest ways to do this is to earmark revenue that comes from traffic enforcement into infrastructure, right? I mean, you think about the way that people are driving, again, going back to culture, the amount of tickets that you can give for people who are speeding, for people who are running stop signs, for people who are running red lights. I mean, like in many places, they feel like traffic lights are almost a suggestion, especially late at night. And so there's money that you can allocate directly into the infrastructure budget. And I think when it comes to where you want to allocate this money, I think the way we improve our infrastructure and maintain our infrastructure is extremely important. And I say that because, again, even in this neighborhood, there are so many places where you see the infrastructure around safe streets and these bump outs just completely destroyed because cars day after day drive over them. And if you are building new infrastructure but not maintaining the infrastructure that already exists, you are basically, just putting a Band-Aid on a problem. because people are not really respecting what exists in the community. And again, this goes back into communicating why we do these things. Why is it that it's so important that we have, people that are turning for a little bit longer, that they're having slower turns? Why is it so important that we can make sure that our streets are safe? Why is it so important to have protected bike lanes so that people can feel safe? And I think it's important that we go across these communities and help people understand that, but also make sure that our infrastructure makes sense. I'll give you a great example of this. I bike very often in this neighborhood. If you go down Bergen Avenue, it is a two-way on the bike lane, all the way straight, until you get to Hudson Catholic. And then suddenly it's a one-way. And it doesn't make any sense, because if you are biking in that area, how are you possibly going to turn over, especially if you're going down Montgomery Street? So that's why I think it's so important that we maintain our current infrastructure. We have capital money that comes in to make sure we can build more infrastructure, but also make sure there's coordination across the city. So when we're doing repaving, people actually know what streets are being repaved and how to make sure that they're safe.
In terms of revenue, that's going to contribute to the safety project that we're working on, the safety culture that we're trying to evolve here in Jersey City. I have an idea of a toll system, and with this toll system, it comes from the concept of there's over 100,000 vehicles that travel through Jersey City on a daily basis, and they contribute to the degrading of our infrastructure here. So with that, they should contribute to fixing our roadways, in addition to using that money to just build more bump outs, create rain wells within the city to beautify our community, because I want to see a beautiful, clean Jersey City, a beautiful, clean and safe Jersey City. In addition to that, have you ever went around the city and see some construction going on, and they just paved over the roadway and they tore up the roads and they left it that way? Require these developers to fix what it is that they break down. We shouldn't have to be feeling like we're on a roller coaster driving or riding throughout the city. So two ways: a toll system, we can recoup some of the money that we're missing out on with this pass-through traffic, and require these developers to contribute to our safety. Thank you.
Question is about parking. Parking is known to be a challenge in many parts of Jersey City. Hoboken recently implemented automated parking enforcement. Other solutions include citywide residential parking permits with limits per household, increasing the price of residential parking permits, abolishing parking minimums, and many other solutions. What would be your solution to the parking challenges in Jersey City? And I think we're starting with you, Councilmember.
Only 2 minutes. I'm excited. So a couple of things I think we can do on parking. The first thing, which is what Talia referenced, was the automated parking enforcement. That is allowed by the state. We passed a contract moving it forward, but it has yet to be implemented. So again, as soon as I get into office, implement it on day one. And what that will do is, if people park on crosswalks, if people park in bus stops, if people park in loading zones, they get an automatic ticket. And so it vastly increases our ability to do enforcement. So that's the first thing. The second thing is analyzing every single redevelopment plan near transit to make sure we are not overdeveloping parking. We've looked at that before, but if you are near, say, take Newport, if you are near a pass station and a light rail, you don't need large parking minimums in that redevelopment plan. So we make sure that we are reducing parking requirements near mass transit, and that's part of that too. I respect when I, knock on a door and someone says, "Hey, parking is a major pain point in my life. I can't find a space in my neighborhood." I get it. I have kids. If you have them in the car and you're taking them home and you got to circle the block 4 times, I appreciate the frustration that comes with that. But I think from a policy perspective, what we need to be able to do is continue to make it safer for people to not need a car in the city. Make it more viable for people not to need a car in the city. So expand our protected bike lane network. We continue to expand the network, create safe connections in every neighborhood, so you can go from the Heights to the Square to Lincoln Park safely. That will encourage fewer people to have cars. Improve our mass transit system. So I'm sure we'll get to mass transit in a little bit, but just to preview, right? Burning our political capital to push the governor, deliver better pass service, better weekend service. Those are the types of things that will allow people to say, "Hey, look, I do not need a car in the city. I can rely on bicycles, mass transit, being a pedestrian, and that will then help those who do need a car to be able to drive some of their parking challenges. So those are at least a couple of the things that I'd like to work on.
Yeah, I think to the point that Councilman Solomon made, I think you hear about parking all over the city. But I think it goes back to culture. Traditionally, a lot of people in Jersey City have seen this as a city where they need cars to get around. And there's a broader point to be made here, which is about how many people actually live and work in Jersey City. We have one of the lowest rates of any major city in this country. Only 17% of people who live in Jersey City work in Jersey City. And it's not that the jobs aren't here. There's 101,000 people that leave Jersey City for work, but there's 99,000 people that come to Jersey City for work. If you want to make it easier for people to not need a car, you need to find them jobs in their own neighborhoods, in their own communities. But there's also other traffic corridors or commercial corridors where people don't have the right kinds of businesses, the right kinds of grocery stores. And so they're like, look, if I'm going to go to the grocery store to go shopping, am I going to do that on a bike? Am I going to do that on the bus, right? A lot of these people feel like they need a car to be able to transport these items. And so what we need to do is, again, shift the way that we think about who is working where, right? Making sure that the resources are available for the people to be in Jersey City. We need to make sure that when we're talking about out-of-state plates, that we're actually enforcing parking. You know, there are new developments all across Jersey City where if you go down the street, you will see license plates from Florida, from California, from Tennessee, from Texas, and there's no enforcement. We need to make sure this is a city where people follow the laws and they're actually paying for those parking permits. And those parking permits, I'll be honest, are just way too cheap. We need to increase the cost of the parking permit, you know, to discourage people from actually having cars, but also understand that right now there are certain neighborhoods where people need a car to get around. There are some neighborhoods I talk to where people say, listen, it is literally easier for me to take my car and drive somewhere else to work than it is to come to downtown Jersey City. And we need to make it easier. I think mass transit is a big part of that. I'm excited to talk about that as we continue this forum.
I would agree about the mass transit, but I wanted to go back to the whole concept of the toll system. So with this toll system, it will not charge Jersey City residents. It will not charge people who are working within the city, right? So by default, it's going to force people to register their vehicles properly, or they're going to end up getting rid of their vehicle because they know that whatever's going on in whatever state they have their vehicle in, they're not going to be able to get the paperwork properly registered here. So one, that relieves out-of-state parkers on our street. Reliable transportation. One of my ideas for reliable transportation, because again, it's not easy navigating through Jersey City. We do have transportation deserts. So in order to fix that, I was thinking of creating an electric bus line. One, it reduces our carbon footprint. In addition, we can control how often it runs, where it runs, and then it also creates jobs for people within the community. So in terms of parking, you know, we can fix the parking issue and create a safer Jersey City and also calm down some of the traffic that's coming through here with this concept of the toll system. Thank you.
So automated parking enforcement is priority one. I'm glad the city adopted it. Hopefully the city doesn't take a year to get an entity and everything in place to enforce it. Critical to making it successful is how you deal with New York State drivers. So if your car goes to New York and you park and you get a ticket and you don't pay the ticket, guess what happens? Your driver's license is suspended. If you come from New York, come to Jersey City, get a parking ticket, don't pay it, guess what happens to you? Nothing. That's a problem because people from New York know that currently there's no reciprocal agreement. So that has to be changed, whether it's changed legislatively on this side or that side, but that makes that enforcement all the more difficult. Now, I'm not an expert about the cars from Florida or North Carolina, but again, if an individual knows that they can park, not pay a ticket, and nothing's going to happen to them, what are they going to care? So automated enforcement with the ability to suspend license for people that don't pay it. If you live in Jersey City, you don't pay your tickets, eventually your license is going to wind up getting suspended. So I think that's important, critical. the amendment of redevelopment plans that are close to mass transit, I would be surprised if many of them don't already have maximum parking. The city a long time ago, if you go to other places in the state of New Jersey, they're like, I can't believe it. Like in Jersey City, you have a maximum parking, not a minimum parking. But certainly we could look at that and see if that's something that we would also be able to do. And somewhat raising residential permits, I think I would support that. I'd want to make sure what that revenue goes dedicated back to. It shouldn't just be kind of a revenue grab for the city.
Thank you.
Got it.
I think Councilmember Salmon started.
And our next,
Oh,
yes, Mr. Ali starts first. Our next question, we will start with Mr. Ali, is about enforcement. With the increase in popularity of e-bikes and micromobility devices, there have been complaints about e-bike and e-scooter riders ignoring traffic laws. Meanwhile, many residents encounter near misses with lawless drivers while traveling through their neighborhoods. How would you direct enforcement resources proportionally to the harm that they aim to prevent, and to discourage dangerous behavior from all road users?
Look, a lot of people who are on these e-bikes are there because they're trying to deliver food. So I don't think the answer here is to penalize them and take away their livelihood. I think the right way to think about this is how do we actually tax the companies that they work for, right? So when we think about companies like DoorDash, companies like Uber Eats, how do we actually make sure that they have a protocol in place where they have to properly train these bike drivers, where they have to make sure that they are following the rules, and when there are fines that are levied, they are levied against the big companies. Because the reality of the system is, if you look at those people who are on these e-bikes, these are not people who can afford to even pay some of these tickets. They are barely scraping by. I know that because I see them at the food pantries, I see them at the mosques, I see them at the gurdwaras. These are not people who have the capacity to be able to pay these tickets. But at the same time, the companies that employ them are taking advantage of their labor. That is a reality of what's happening here. And so I think it falls on us to make sure we hold those companies accountable. We need to make sure that the enforcement is on the companies, on DoorDash, on Uber Eats, making sure that they understand, look, if someone is driving unsafely, you need to tell them from your platform what they need to be doing. You need to have training programs. And if they aren't doing them, then you can kick them off your platforms, right? And have them on another platform. So they actually understand, okay, this isn't working, and I'm not going to be able to do this. And they send a message to everybody else, look, you need to make sure you're driving properly and enforcing the law. But I think the idea of enforcing that on the individual is extremely difficult. Now, when it comes to younger people, people who are driving the city bikes, I think we need to have police officers, who are actually there enforcing the law and making sure we start this with a process where we're giving a lot of warnings, but then eventually getting into enforcement. But I think there is a different approach between people who are doing this for employment, who are just trying to make a living, and people who are doing this for tourism, who are just skirting the law.
So, sorry. Okay, so as a police officer, I go to these calls all the time with these e-bikers. Any vehicle that's operating on the roadway has to abide by the law on the roadway. And for these e-bikes in particular, anything that's going over 20 miles per hour, because a lot of them do get up there in speed, they're going to be required to have a driver's license or some type of licensing for them to operate that vehicle. In addition to that, there's businesses in Jersey City that sell these particular devices, making sure that this plan of licensing and then also insurances is implemented, because if you go to a car dealership, you have to have those things before you leave the lot. So I think that will work well with these e-bikes opposed to just outright banning them. I'm not necessarily a fan of the electric scooters. They're extremely dangerous because the people that are riding them, they do not obey the laws. As a police officer, I would make sure that the police department would be involved in enforcing tickets on these people who are frequently violating the traffic laws. And I would do that with a traffic division in addition to a cyclist team, which we've had in the past, but for whatever reasons was dismantled. So bringing that back would definitely help with some of these infractions on these e-bikes and other vehicles that's operating on the roadway.
So the answer is you've got to enforce both, and that's just the reality of it. Bringing back the motorcycle squad is a no-brainer. If on one hand you adopt Vision Zero, and then on the other hand you abolish the agency whose job it would be, in many cases, to enforce speeding and right turns illegally on red, et cetera, you're counterproductive to that policy which you adopted. So bringing back the motorcycle squad and the traffic unit, I think everyone that's running for mayor agrees for it. The motorcycles still exist. You can go down to Marion Gardens. They're there. They're sitting there. They probably need a little bit of a, redo, a little bit because they've been sitting there for so long. But that's a no-brainer. And we've had, when I was a councilman, we had bicyclists. We had cycle squad. That's another no-brainer to bring that back. Those two work together. But you've got to enforce it against motor vehicles. But you've also got to enforce it against especially the commercial e-bikers. Now, whether you enforce it first against the companies and then the riders, you've got to do both. First of all, those commercial e-bikers should have helmets. They should be required. It's for their own safety. The cycle should have lights. They should be in a light enough color to be able to be seen. Those things are all no-brainers. I don't think any of us disagree with that, and that has to be done. So that's all part of doing a registration and doing an education. In a lot of cases, I don't think they've done the proper education of it, but I think you've got to do education, hold the businesses accountable because they're the ones making the most money, not those individuals that are struggling to just stay alive, and now many of them competing with the robots that you see on our sidewalks all over Jersey City. But you got to enforce them equally, and creating the squad, having the squad do what they're supposed to, educating, registering those individuals are all part of an overall solution to addressing the problem.
Yeah, I think the question I think had a portion of the answer, which for me was you allocate enforcement sort of time, effort, resources in proportion to the danger to users of the road and on our streets. And I think for me the data is very clear that large vehicles, cars, speeders are the ones that have the most danger to create fatalities, to create serious injuries. And so as mayor, I would direct the police chief and the new traffic enforcement division to prioritize dangerous speeders in large vehicles and cars running red lights and stop signs, because I think those are the types of actions and behaviors that can create the most significant danger to people on our roads. Now, that does not mean you don't enforce e-bike rules, which, as everyone on this panel said, we do need to do. And just to give you an example, a constituent of mine is coming on the November 12th meeting to the City Council to talk about how she was hit by an e-bike and had to go to the hospital for a week and had pretty serious injuries. So the fact that e-bikes do create serious injuries when they're not following appropriate traffic laws is real, and we need to direct our enforcement energies there as well. I do agree with my colleagues who say, we cannot let these app companies off the hook. The app companies are billion-dollar operations with massive lobbying arms. We did put in place, I think, the initial foundation of regulations for e-bikes on the council a year ago. We worked closely with advocates in the room. We worked closely with folks in the community, but it was always an initial step, and it was always to be built upon. And I think one of the ways to build upon it is the app companies can be fined through this law, but we have to strengthen those penalties and make sure that the app companies ultimately are responsible, because oftentimes they are incentivizing the drivers to go too quickly, the riders to move too quickly, and there need to be penalties for that behavior. Thank you.
Thank you. This first question is going to Ms. Freeman. Bless you. This question is about schools. Parents are increasingly concerned about the safety of their children traveling to and from school. Because of the density of Jersey City, most children can walk, bike, or take transit to school. but school drop-off and pickup lines combined with a shortage of crossing guards are creating unsafe, congested, and inefficient use of street space. PS 37 recently created a car-free school street. Would you support additional school streets in Jersey City? How do you recommend improving street safety around school zones?
Well, yes, I would support that. You know, the children are the most important part of this city that we run. So children should be able to get to school safely and shouldn't have to worry about being mowed down by vehicles. So an area that we can increase is adding more security guards, not security guards, crossing guards on the street to help the children to get across the street. In addition to just, I was thinking of having them to wear the body cams that we wear to where they have the powers to submit infractions of these drivers so that the law enforcement can issue the proper summonses after reviewing the camera footage off of the guards that are out there for the young people. But you know, everyone has to play a part in the community and the safety, maybe create some community safety committees that can be out there that consist of some of these parents where they can rotate and be out there with the children so that they can get to the schools across the street safely, and just making sure that enforcement is done, zero tolerance on the enforcement and issuing summonses to those who violate.
So I would support, wherever possible, closing streets to make them safe for children to get to school. I observe on a daily basis how many cars double park for their children to get out. They get out of their car on the driver's side. They have to let their child out on the passenger side, and then I watch cars go past them in the opposite direction. That's a nightmare waiting to happen. So I think that in addition to bringing on additional crossing guards, looking school by school, and in any instance where we can close the street to allow that street to be safe, force people that want to drive their children to school. And look, in some cases, their children go to schools that are outside of their district for very valid reasons. We have charter schools in the city. Let's be realistic. Many of those individuals are not from those neighborhoods. But even in those instances, the ability to require them to find a parking space 2 blocks away and walk their child to school if that's what they need to do, that's what they have to do. And I think that's critical. I would work with the Board of Education, school by school, any and every school that could be done. I would 100% support that being done. But we also do need additional crossing guards. There are many schools that do not have enough crossing guards. They have 1 crossing guard when you need 2 or 3 crossing guards, even on the corners that are that far away from it. Because if they're not there, those cars are there, those cars speed, those cars double park, and all of those instances create potential hazards to the children that are there. There's no price that you can put on that, and also there's no time that you can put on it. If it means you've got to get up 10 minutes earlier to get your child to school, if that's an inconvenience, so be it. But close the streets wherever possible. We need to hire a lot more crossing guards. They serve a lot of great purposes, and I would support doing more hiring, but working with the Board of Ed to close as many of those streets as possible.
Yeah, I'll start with this. You know, I don't feel safe having my oldest daughter go to walk to her school, and it's not that far. She really just has to cross one road, but it's an unsafe intersection. And while we have a wonderful crossing guard at that intersection, it's just, you know, as a parent, I don't know how old she would have to get for me to feel safe, and not acceptable for me, not acceptable for any family in the city. So, I mean, a couple things that I think are really important as starting places. So each of the 3 elementary schools that I've represented, we have done street safety improvements on, and that is the type of work I'd want to do at every elementary school with that fully staffed engineering department we discussed earlier. So at PS 37, as referenced, we are working on closing Pavonia so that during the day the kids have a safe place to play. At PS 5, we redesigned the intersection at 3rd and Vercellis, so there's now a much safer flow of cars and traffic that has massively made the pickup and drop off safer at that intersection. At PS 2016, as the number of students bused to the Danforth School increased, we banned parking on Washington Street, not Grand Street, Washington Street, because it was safer to be on Washington Street, and then worked with our parking division to actually start towing cars because cars simply weren't moving. Each of those required the ability to deal some pushback, right? Folks on Pavonia don't want the street closed. Folks on Washington Street didn't want to lose parking in the morning. And, I was saying, look, the safety of our children is crucial and paramount, and whatever frustrations you have, whatever legitimate, they cannot trump the safety of our children. And that is what I'd want to do citywide. So every school would want to basically do a safe streets audit. We'd want to look at both the intersections, the pick up and drop off at each school. We'd want to look at where the crossing guards are and where we need more crossing guards. And basically school by school, redesign streets and make sure we have a safety plan for each school, because every parent deserves to feel safe having their kids walk or bike to school. Thanks.
I think we need to work very closely with the Board of Education, and I think that's been a relationship that's really been non-existent for the past couple of years. I can tell you, as someone that served on the school board, we constantly felt like we were under threat when it came to City Hall, and that did not lead to a productive relationship. I remember actually kicking off that project at PS5, while I was on the school board, working with Councilman Solomon and the mayor and their administration. But those kinds of partnerships and those relationships are very difficult to come around when you feel like you are under threat by the mayor. And for too long, the people of Jersey City, especially on the school board, have felt like the mayor has been throwing them under the bus. So I think it's really important that we have somebody that understands and can work directly with the Board of Education. But I mean, look, my own experiences, I remember walking to school for elementary school. I remember taking 2 buses in the morning to get to my middle school. And I remember walking to my high school. I mean, each and every single child who is going to school, we are putting them at risk because of the way the traffic is not enforced. We constantly have people who talk about, near misses all the time. We have lost young people to traffic incidents just this year. The reality of the situation is the traffic in the city has gotten out of hand. We need to have enforcement, and we need to support all measures to make sure that our young people feel safe walking to school. And so, to me, I support whatever we can do with our schools to work hand in hand with our principals to talk to them about what is the traffic flow that exists, what is the best case scenario, and how do we educate our parents to make sure, hey, we know that you're not going to be able to drop them off right in front of the building. But what is the way that we can make sure there's a guided flow, right? And I think this goes back to Commissioner O'Day's idea about the crossing guards. How do we make sure there's not just one crossing guard, but 2, to make sure someone is actually directing the kids so the parents feel safe? Because if you're dropping your kid 2 blocks away, you're going to feel like, hey, do I know that in these 2 blocks they're going to be safe, right? I know how parents can get. So we want to make sure it's fully staffed so that people can actually feel safe dropping them a little bit further away and they can get to the destination safely.
And our next question will start with Mr. O'Day, and it is one that was suggested to us online in advance by a resident of Jersey City, and it's kind of about a transportation adjacency. One of the reasons why many people in Jersey City say they own a car is for getting groceries, for shopping, especially for a big family. But many neighborhoods in Jersey City are considered food deserts. As mayor, how would you address the affordability and convenience of grocery stores, especially in areas of Jersey City with limited access?
So before I do that, I just want to note from the last question, when I was in grammar school, I was a patrol boy. Maybe we could bring back some patrol boys to help out with our traffic crossing guards. That'd be a way to give them some props in their future. So, food deserts, yes. I'm currently working, and I've been working for a number of years with ShopRite. They're looking to develop a ShopRite supermarket off of 440 and near where the development of NJCU is. The supermarket I use is on West Side Avenue and Union Street. I walk from Williams to Union all the time. As someone who knows how to run an economic development corporation, I think that the city of Jersey City can bring grant dollars to help find locations and acquire sites, but also small business loan dollars to be able to assist and work with the New Jersey EDA. The New Jersey EDA has a program for food deserts where they provide low interest financing for projects that want to develop those supermarkets. But also we should encourage those markets that we currently have, smaller markets. Some people call them bodegas, and what we can do to help them sustain. And if we can help them sustain, then we can help keep people to shop in the area. So identify the areas of the city, and there are areas of the city that are food deserts. So within those areas, create incentives, state incentives, local incentives from a financing perspective, to try to create smaller grocery stores, 6,000, 8,000 square feet for those areas to be there. 90% of my food shopping, I do it at the store on West Side and Union. Once in a while, I venture down to the Acme on 440.
Absolutely. Agree with much of what Commissioner O'Day said. One, using the economic development authorities of the city to actively promote bringing in food, supermarkets and food sources in areas that don't have them. Obviously, right now there's been a big push to get a ShopRite and a Target over by 440, which would be an immense benefit to sort of Society Hill, Greenville section. However, you also then have to have safe methods of traveling there. So you have to make sure that those two things are done together. So thinking about, obviously, that location, we would need to make sure that we're improving the mass transit to that area, obviously eventually extending the light rail over to Bayfront, that we're improving the bus service there, and that we have safe, protected bike lanes there. So it does bring up issues in the Heights, right? A big debate over the last year has been the protected bike network in the Heights. We have Manhattan Avenue and Franklin Avenue. And, when the city was about to scrap the whole plan, I was able on the council to move a final vote forward to get a portion of it forward on Franklin. Like, literally, we weren't going to vote on it. And I was like, no, we have to vote on it and move forward. And it passed by one vote. But we have to do more than that. So we have to make sure that there are safe bike routes and better mass transit connected to where our supermarkets exist, where they are in the Heights, and where any new ones would be coming, including over those by 440. So thank you.
I remember the city trying actually to make bodegas have healthy food. And a big reason that wasn't successful was because a lot of people weren't going to bodegas to buy that food. And the reality is, I think Commissioner O'Day, hit the nail on the head here. The most important thing for businesses are incentives, right? How do you make sure that someone opens a grocery store in a certain area? You make sure there's enough customers who are there. The reality is, as a city, we need to increase density in some of these neighborhoods. That's the reason that grocery stores don't open. They're like, look, there's not enough foot traffic, there aren't enough customers, it doesn't make financial sense for us to open up a grocery store. And so we need to be thinking about density. How do we increase density in certain neighborhoods so that grocery stores open? The reason there's a Target that's opening 2 blocks away from here is because they recognize that right now there's an opportunity with all these new customers to actually have a full grocery store here. And I think the second point that's being made here around mass transit, we need to have real solutions as a city when it comes to how can we solve mass transit. Our campaign has proposed a city-run bus system that would be fully operational, run by City Hall, would be completely fast because of the transponders that we could put inside of it, but it is miles more efficient than VIA. VIA right now costs $7.8 million a year. It is not effective. It's not an efficient way for people to get around town. It increases the amount of traffic in many ways, and I think it's much more efficient to have a bus that says, hey, this is a bus that will go to the ShopRite. This is the bus that will go to the Target. This is a way for you to get around town, to get your groceries, to get your commercial corridors, and to be able to get back home safely.
In addition to everything that my running mates have stated, I think we need to rethink how we get our food. A creative way, or one of the ways that I've seen some cities incorporate to address some of the food desert issues, is promoting more farmer markets. We have them here in the city, but we can actually put some more out within the areas that are known to be food deserts. In addition to that, we have a lot of green spaces or underutilized lots that were turned into green spaces, and use them to start gardens, urban gardens. And in these gardens, we can bring in people who can do workshops and other type of enrichment activities with our seniors and our youth to just show them how to create healthier meals and just be more aware of their food choices. Yes, we do need more supermarkets within Jersey City. I would like to see at least 2 more added here. it would be great. One of the areas that I can see one in is right off of Garfield. That's if that space isn't taken. That would be a great space to put a nice supermarket to where it'll be accessible. And in addition to just expanding the light rail, people can't get to the supermarkets if they don't have reliable transportation. Again, one of my ideas is the electric bus line. We control it, we determine how often it runs, where it goes, and again, in addition to creating jobs for the people here. Thank you.
Now we're at the speed round. Yeah, okay. You'll have 30 seconds. You might not need them. In many cases, these are yes or no questions. I'm going to start with the first one. It's an easy example for the speed round. Okay, so the New Jersey Turnpike Authority is planning to double the size of the Newark Bay Bridge from 4 lanes to 8 lanes and to expand the rest of the highway up to the Holland Tunnel. They plan to start construction in 2026. Do you support the current plan? And if you oppose it, will you continue Jersey City's lawsuit against the Turnpike? I think we're at council member.
So 1,000% against it. It is a generational mistake. You're going to spend $12 billion to create more pollution and more congestion. I have stood at every rally against it. Bill and I have talked about, we were at that first rally 3 years ago at Mary Benson Park, and I am fully committed to the lawsuit against it and then using any tool that we have, political, legal, whatever it is, because when it's a generational mistake, you have to fight it because of the damage it's going to do to our city.
Try to make the speed round. Oppose the expansion. We'll fight to continue the lawsuit.
Totally opposed to it. It's an environmental injustice, and I will fight them however we need to and continue with that lawsuit.
No, I do not support it. As the councilman said, we have stood side by side at every rally, never wavered in our opposition to it, continuing the lawsuit, using legislative pressure for our legislators that represent Jersey City to fight it, to stop it. Those dollars can be so much better used, although the Turnpike will tell you can't just give them to do light rail and mass transit. I'm sure within the world of government we can find a way that those dollars can be better used for that. So whatever we need to do, we'll do.
Okay, next speed question. We're starting with Mr. Ali. One near and dear to my heart. Will you commit to continuing to build out Jersey City's protected bike lane network? And which streets and connections would you prioritize within your first year?
So the answer is yes. I think Summit and Baldwin are already sort of on the docket. I think that's a great way to sort of expand. I also think we need to look a lot more at the north-south corridors. I think looking at Communipaw Avenue as a potential place to continue to expand bike lanes.
I would say yes, and I agree. Summit and Baldwin would be some of the areas that I would target first.
So definitely yes. I think Summit and Baldwin are the next two. But a number of years ago, I tried to get the county to agree to take a portion of the boulevard to be able to utilize that as it. But it seems now that's gone by the wayside. So Summit and Baldwin seem like the most obvious ones to do.
Yes, I agree with Summit and Baldwin. Agree with sort of finaling some of the connections that are missing. So obviously Newark Avenue, we've now extended up Palisades. Can we go further and ensure that we have that connection further north? And then I think it's really important, and my commitment is in expanding the protected bike lane network and the Bike Master Plan is a safe corridor connecting every neighborhood. That is the commitment. So it's Heights to the Square, Square to the Park, Lincoln Park to Liberty State Park, Lafayette neighborhood is getting one in Johnston. That's the commitment.
We're with Ms. Freeman. You're the first one on this one? Okay. We're still speed round. There are currently neighborhoods in Jersey City with no PATH station, making residents in these areas reliant on New Jersey Transit buses or light rail service. When was the last time you used New Jersey Transit in Jersey City, and how would you improve bus service in Jersey City?
Oh my goodness. I haven't rode the bus in a very long time. I'm sorry. I I drive most of the places that I go. I've had my driver's license since I was like 17 years old, so I'm 37 now. So I can't give you much on that. But I would collaborate with the transit system so that we can expand the services, later hours and just different places, the transportation deserts.
So I think I rode once about a year and a half ago when they were going to get rid of the 440 shopper, just to see what route it was still running, because I used to take that back in the day. So look, as a commissioner, I work with the community to save the 440 shopper line and the number 80 line. As mayor, I would work to expand lines, add additional lines where necessary. I've always found my two colleagues to the right intriguing of free and electrical bus services, but anything to take areas that are remote and link, we would spend the dollars to do that.
My last ride was on the 80 bus. I'm lucky that my house is next to the 80 line, and I rode it to McGinley Square from downtown. And my commitment is to burn my political capital on better transit in Jersey City with the state. And so that's obviously PATH, which is a separate agency, but the governor really controls it. But then on better light rail and bus service, and in particular, a plan to ensure the buses don't bunch up together, where you got 3 in 2 minutes and then none for 20, but a plan to space them out evenly.
I frequently canvass at the West Side Light Rail Station, and then I'll take the 80 bus back. So probably like last week, took the 80 bus back from the West Side all the way back here to Journal Square. And again, there's nothing that we can do as the mayor when it comes to NJ Transit, when it comes to the light rail, when it comes to the PATH train. We need to be thinking as a city about a city-run solution. Hoboken has one. Hoboken has the HOP. We can do the same exact thing right here in Jersey City without raising taxes, because there is already a transportation subsidy that we're providing to the tune of $7.5 million to VIA every single year.
Thank you. Now our final speed round question, starting with Mr. O'Day, about automated enforcement. If it is legalized by the state, would you support Jersey City participating in a pilot for speed camera automated enforcement in school zones?
The answer is absolutely yes, and you would recall that when there was a event at City Hall, I was there to support that from day one, and I've offered for the schools on JFK Boulevard, which is about 7 or 8 of them, to be a pilot roadway, because I think that the speed on the boulevard makes it more dangerous, and speed cameras there would be very, very effective in combating that.
I'm going to be legalistic and say no, because I wouldn't support a pilot. I would support full implementation. But that's because I think it's proven to work, right? I think the data from New York City shows that lives have been saved because of speed cameras. So on my end, I will do it to the authority that we're allowed to.
I agree with Councilman Solomon here. Have the speed light cameras, enforce them as much as you can. Because I have a little bit more time, I also want to say another pilot that they have in New York that I think is really effective is the buses now in New York City also have the ability to give out tickets when people are going to bus stops. And I think that's really effective, especially if NG Transit's not going to do it. We have our own city-run bus system, and now suddenly we can enforce that in Jersey City as well.
My answer would be yes, and also to branch it out into the PUG vehicles, which are patrol vehicles that aren't manned by anyone. It's something that's currently being piloted, and I would love to bring something like that to Jersey City and see how we can enforce some of the traffic violations.
Thank you. And next, we're going to turn to a few selected questions submitted by you, our studio audience. And my colleague, Jimmy Lee, will read a few of those. And for those, we're going back to 2 minutes again. And
No problem. I'm sorry, I have to get out of here. I have to finish up my midterm and finish out my papers, so please wish me luck. Thank you.
Good luck. Good luck.
I think Solomon's next. Yeah. Starting with Mr. Solomon.
This is our last debate of the entire session, time of the run. And I want to give a big shout out to Christina for actually attending every single debate. So a big shout out to her, 100% attendance as someone who's not a politician. And Commissioner O'Day too, but we'll get to him later.
Yeah, I think for this audience questions about buses, and I'll just add a little bit to it, but this is also an audience question. I think, the number 9 Society Hill bus runs down Montgomery Ave. It's a direct link between the west side and the medical center as well as City Hall. But it comes only once every 65 minutes. What I'll add to that is, Jersey City also has some very busy bus lines that are getting stuck in traffic. The 119 and bus 87 each serve 2.6 million rides per year. What are your thoughts on improving the speed/frequency of bus service in Jersey City?
My first name. Yeah. Great question. When I canvassed in front of the 119 buses in the morning, it was such a point of frustration for residents because you're both waiting for a bus, the bus comes, it's filled, then you got to wait 20 minutes for the next bus, and then that bus is stuck in traffic. So we must do everything in our power to make our bus system more effective. And my commitment is just solving problems quickly. The beauty of buses is they don't require the same level of money and capital investment that some of the light rail and other transit subway systems require. So NJ Transit can put more money in and deliver a significantly better service quickly. And that is where I talk about burning our political capital with the governor, and I do contrast it with the current mayor. He really used his statewide political capital on the Pompidou, which I don't think was the essential project to Jersey City, whereas transit is essential to each and every one of us. So then a couple of things we can do. Musa mentions this with his free bus idea, but the transponders do work. There are ways that you can make the lights timed up to the bus routes. Using the automated parking enforcement at bus stops, so the bus stops can actually pull in and not block traffic and be able to right next to the curb, which is safer for folks to load and unload. Working on technology to space the buses out so they don't get bunch up together. And then moving along the bus rapid transit ideas that have been brought forward. The Kennedy Boulevard is the one that I'm most focused on. I know it's something the commissioner has been working on, but bus rapid transit has been proven to work and to work effectively in other cities, particularly when you do it the right way. So you don't just create a bus lane but let anybody get into it. You actually have that dedicated lane. You have physical separation so cars can't get inside. Ideally, you even have ability to pay your fare before you get onto the bus, again, to speed up the bus moving quickly. And I think we get that north-south corridor going, which is Kennedy Boulevard, and then look at the east-west corridor. And obviously the 9 was mentioned, but Montgomery Street could work as an east-west corridor. There's a couple of places where it's too narrow, but possibly you're back in transit just for a couple blocks. Thank you.
Again, we need to be thinking about investments with NJ Transit, but what can we do as a city? Jersey City is big enough and dense enough that we can make our own individual investments. Now, in terms of the transponder, so we talk about these buses being free, right? Again, there's a transportation subsidy that we are already providing to a private company called VIA. By the way, this subsidy boggles my mind because you think about it, public transit is always going to lose money. We all know that. If there's a private company that is the operator that has to turn a profit, where do you think they're getting their profit from? It is based on how much they are charging the taxpayers. And year after year, they come back to us and ask for more money and are providing less service. I mean, it's a private company. Of course, they have to make more and more money every single year to return to their shareholders. But the way we make these buses fast, what Councilman Solomon was referencing is in part of our plan, we talk about how 80% of the traffic signals in Jersey City are actually city-run. What that means is you can put a transponder inside the bus to make sure whenever it's going to a red light, it's going to get a green light. Or if it's a yellow light, it stays yellow for a little bit longer so the bus can be the fastest way to get around town. This way, what you're incentivizing is you're actually telling people, hey, if you want to get around town in a really efficient manner, completely for free, get on the bus. And how you change the culture of the city is you make a service that is really effective and accountable. Right now, the governor of New Jersey does not respond to any of us. It doesn't matter what the mayor of Jersey City says. We've all been frustrated by the path. Everyone has been yelling at the governor about it. They've done nothing. Let's have a service that's actually accountable to the city of Jersey City. And when we have that fast and free bus system, if it sucks, you can hold me accountable. You can come to my office and you can yell at me. Right? That is the way we actually change culture and make sure we have a solution that solves the needs of everyday Jersey City residents.
The use of the transponders is a no-brainer. JFK Boulevard will be the test case for bus rapid transit. We're there. We're putting out for the RFP to develop and look at the options, some of the options that Councilman Solomon spoke about to make sure it's effective. And that's probably the first street you want it on, because that's a street with 2 lanes, speeding, needs to have other improvements done to it in areas that we haven't already had it done, just to slow traffic down. But we also do need to work with New Jersey Transit. Quite frankly, we don't really have any representation on New Jersey Transit Board. And as the mayor, the first thing I would do is ask the governor to allow and make sure we have a representative there. If we have no representation, then it's all that much harder for our voices to be heard. We can go to meetings, we can bring people to meetings. I've spoken at 1 or 2 of their meetings over the course of my career when we're looking to save bus lines. We need to work with them. Spreading out when buses run, a no-brainer. Making sure that we save our bus lines. Look, in recent years, our fights have been to save bus lines. It's easy to say how we're going to expand all our bus lines, but the 80, the 440 Shopper, the 80, all these bus lines, we've been fighting to save them. So let's get past saving them. Now look at expanding them. Create bus rapid transit, JFK Boulevard being the first, but not the only. Look at where the next areas of the city need to be put at, using the transponders so to make it quicker. And look, I'm not sure about Musab idea. I like Musab. I'm definitely sure about you. You're a good guy. But Isles already has one, right? If you look at Trenton, there's a model in New Jersey that comes close to what you want to do. And it kind of uses more of a, if you make less money, you may not, it may be free for you. So let's look at a model that already exists and see how we can apply that to Jersey City to get it started right away.
Yes, and thank you all for that. For this question, I want to lift up an audience member that unfortunately experienced being hit as a pedestrian. Between the child recently killed and my own lived experience being hit as a pedestrian, what can be done to eradicate reckless drivers and make Jersey City a more family-oriented city?
It's me. First, I just want to apologize to the audience member that happened to, because I know how hard it can be when something like that happens, the sort of trauma that causes, where every time you're crossing the street, you're now worried about your life. But again, this is going back to culture. We have a culture in Jersey City where people think it's okay to drive however you want because they are not being pulled over. And we need to make sure that people understand that this is a city where you have to abide by the law. Look, I just had a conversation actually with Mayor Davis, who is now going to be our Hudson County Sheriff. And he said, listen, 8 years ago or 12 years ago when he got elected, people in Bayonne used to drive recklessly. But one of the things he mentioned in his platform is he said, I will make sure that the people in Bayonne understand that if you are driving too fast, you will get pulled over. And I guarantee you, today, you literally cross that dividing line on 440, and you go from Greenville into Bayonne, and suddenly, things change. And it's not because it's different people who are driving the cars. It's not because they look different than us. It's because drivers understand the culture. I mean, when Commissioner O'Day talks about the speed limit on the boulevard, the speed limit's the same everywhere. The difference is just where it's enforced, right? And this is also where you work together with other agencies. Because one of the things I talked to Mayor Davis about is I said, listen, if we're in City Hall and you're the county sheriff, how can we make sure that the sheriff officers are working with us to enforce traffic safety, to make sure that there are going to be officers there to say, look, if people are driving too fast, we crack down. Because no one in Jersey City should have to feel unsafe crossing the street. And the reality is, I don't know that there's anyone here that feels safe. So that's one part of it. The other part of it, I think, also is the jaywalking problem. I know in Jersey City it's a cultural thing. A lot of us do it. But we need to make sure when it comes to safety, we're talking both to pedestrians and to drivers.
So again, my sympathies to that individual. That's a very traumatic experience. Enforcement. The fact that there's been zero traffic enforcement, that there's been no traffic squad for so many years speaks volumes. Because in the beginning, people figure, oh, I could get away with, wow, nothing happens. Wow, nothing happens. Wow, nothing happens. And it becomes a mindset. And that mindset of no enforcement, no traffic squad for so many years has created a very, very significant problem as it relates to the thinking of individuals that are driving on our streets. So bringing that in right away is critical. I mentioned earlier, we used to have red light cameras. One legislator who I think might have got a ticket for it got so PO'd that he got rid of it. Now, that's pathetic. That's pathetic government. Bring that back. When we had it on the boulevard, we had it at Duncan, we had it at Communipaw. When we had it, we took all the revenue from that, and what did we do with it? We put it into enforcement. Actually, we gave the money to the Jersey City Police Department and allowed them to do traffic enforcement on the boulevard and on West Side Avenue. So bring that back. We spoke earlier about speed cameras by schools. We changed timing of red lights on the boulevard specifically to slow traffic down. And it works, and people complain. But if we had enforcement to go along with that, that would make that even better to do. And I think in other parts of the city, we also need to do that where the red lights are done in a manner to force traffic to slow down, especially at nighttime. Because when it's dark, when people are speeding, that's more likelihood that, like that sad, tragic accident that happened to this individual in Orange could happen to someone else. But enforcement, 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, again, obviously condolences. It's an awful thing to have to experience and go through. And it is the reason why, we need to do this. And I think all of us have met with people who have lost family members because of traffic violence in Jersey City. And, there's some of the toughest conversations you have as an elected official. And I want to reiterate a couple of the points I made, but maybe be able to expand upon a couple of them, which is we talked about enforcement and infrastructure, and those two things have to be paired together. We have to have that traffic enforcement division, and we have to then put these roadway improvements in, the road diets, the raised intersections, the bump outs, the visual signaling that forces people in vehicles and cars to slow down. But I think Vision Zero is really a all-of-government mindset, and I think that has been missing. So, for example, our public safety division just doesn't come to the Vision Zero meetings that are held in the city. That is not reflective of a commitment to actual Vision Zero. And again, as mayor, everyone reports to you. So if you have a division director who isn't fully committed to Vision Zero, that person has to go. Another example of what we can do. We are under a consent decree to redo all crosswalks to make them ADA compliant. Crosswalks, the curb cuts, the bump out, the curb cuts. So anytime we do a curb cut, we need to do a bump out with that. So that might cost a little bit more money, but it means that we are never touching a road or a sidewalk without implementing safer streets. And then that goes to the MUA. The MUA is frequently repaving our streets. So the MUA has to be fully bought in, and MUA is our sewer agency, folks who don't know, has to be fully bought into Vision Zero. So Vision Zero, can't just be a buzzword. It can't just be a paper that sits on a shelf. It has to be a, living, breathing, virtue, if you will, that every member of the city government and city bureaucracy is held to. And then as mayor, if you have leaders who aren't committed to Vision Zero, they have to go.
Thank you. For our last audience question tonight, it's about delivery vehicles, a different kind of congestion. We have UPS trucks, FedEx trucks, Amazon delivery vehicles, Uber and Lyft delivery, double parking in crosswalks, parked all over. Also, a UPS truck was involved in the crash at 6th and Jersey. How do we manage delivery driver congestion? How do we consider smaller vehicles?
I would support anything that helps get smaller vehicles there. It's one of the most frustrating things I see on a daily basis. And I've fought with the Jersey City Police Department because they tell me, well, if they want to double park a vehicle and put their hazard lights on, there's nothing we can do. We can't even give them a ticket. Right over here on JFK Boulevard, we deal with it every day. The amount of vehicles that double park there on quote-unquote deliveries is astronomical. So if we can change the law to stop that, that would be great to do. If we could limit times and force those deliveries to be at times when there's not usage on that road, then we should do that. But it's very, very frustrating. Obviously, if you have traffic enforcement, if you have traffic officers, if you have motorcycles, they can go to those places, expedite whatever needs to be done in order to make sure that those deliveries are done quicker. To the degree we can pressure those corporations and entities that have them to use other methods of doing it, fine. But yeah, it's one of the biggest problems I see, and I'm shocked and surprised that we can't do more, that the state won't let us change the laws, but whatever we need to do, because every day I run into that, every day I see that, every day I worry when there's a street with two directions and there's a vehicle in one making a delivery. God help what happens if somebody goes around that vehicle and the vehicle's coming in the opposite direction. So I would look at as many places that have figured out how to deal with it and take whatever recommendations they have, because I think that's something that we really have to focus on, figure out, get the state involved, whatever law changes we need to be made. But if we have traffic enforcement, at least those traffic enforcement entities could be helpful while those vehicles there in making sure that people aren't going around them, creating the ability of head-on collisions.
Yeah. I think a couple key things to focus on. First is I've already started working with our current Assemblyman John Allen and our future Assembly people, Katie Brennan and Ravi Bala, on a bill that kind of does two things. The first is it looks at requiring on larger delivery trucks basically protection on the sides of the vehicles, because oftentimes when delivery trucks are involved in fatal and serious accidents, individuals can kind of get basically sucked underneath the vehicle and then run over. So there's sort of bars that go on the sides of the vehicles. So we're looking at making that a requirement. And we're also looking at banning the use of those large delivery vehicles in urban centers because the banning of it would make a big difference to forcing these large corporations to use those smaller vehicles that are clearly much safer and better designed for our streets. So that is already in motion, and I believe we will have state legislators who are going to be really committed to that. Another thing is we are working with a member of the audience on a practice where we will be able to do what New York does. New York has the ability for people to report vehicles that are idling against the law, and then the person who reports the ticket actually can get a little bit of that revenue. We want to do that for folks parked in bike lanes. And oftentimes those are the delivery vehicles that park in bike lanes and create a deeply unsafe situation. So we are committed to putting that in place so that we can really disincentivize those delivery vehicles from parking in bike lanes and other unsafe intersections. And then we do need sort of broader, I think the wonky term is curb management policies, but basically delivery is increasing. It's getting more and more. We need to look at where we can create dedicated delivery zones on every block for those delivery vehicles to park, make sure that they're there, and then enforce if they're not there, that we are giving tickets and having that traffic enforcement to ensure that the delivery vehicles are actually going where we need them to go and not just parking willy-nilly on our streets.
Like I said, at a forum, it's tough when you're mostly in agreement. Look, I think when it comes to the vehicles, again, going to the companies and saying, look, we need to make sure that these large trucks are not coming into our roads because our roads are narrow. This is not the place to have your largest trucks there. And then I think to the point that Councilman Solomon's making, curb management. There are so many small businesses that come to us all the time that say, look, I don't know where I'm going to get my groceries loaded, right? I mean, right here on Journal Square, if you're on Bergen Avenue and you look at a couple of these smaller grocery stores that are here, almost every single one of them has a truck that's double parked. But then we're talking about food deserts and saying, listen, how do we make sure that there's effective food across the city? Well, if you don't have a place where people can actually load and unload their vehicles, you're never going to get grocery stores somewhere. So we need to make sure we can create these loading zones across the city to make sure that there's timing for these vehicles, right? Because I think what government really is about, it's about the give and take. How do we work these businesses to say, hey, you're going to have this loading zone from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m., but after that time, this can be used for something else, right? To make sure that we are actually managing our curbs so we can get all the things that the city wants, that people can get their deliveries, that people can get their Amazon orders, that people can get their groceries. Because if we are really investing in a city where commercial corridors are working across the city, we need to make sure we are helping the businesses to make sure they're successful, but also making sure that our streets are safe so that every single one of us can walk and feel safe across the city.
Thank you. We appreciate your answering a lot of questions. Thank you. We have two more pre-prepared questions, and then we're going to do closing statements. This first question is Jersey City streets, and I think this one is starting with Councilmember. Yep. Jersey City streets are packed with impatient drivers trying to get in and out of New York City. Opening the Jersey Ave Bridge added more cars coming in from the Turnpike driving through downtown. The mayor has taken a step to ban left turns onto Monmouth Street in the mornings every once in a while, but it's not all the time or in the evenings. So what creative solutions might you consider to reduce cut-through driving that's coming towards the Holland Tunnel and Lincoln Tunnels? Again, we prefer if you focus on solutions that you have control over, although we know that working with the state is important.
Absolutely. So a couple of things let me just start about why it's so important. If you are standing on the corner of Monmouth and 7th Street on a Sunday night in the summer, if you stand on that corner at 8:30 a.m. on a weekday morning, it is just a stream of cars. And you look at the license plates, most of the cars have New York license plates, particularly on the Sunday evenings as people are coming back into the city. So you're just seeing people that literally are just using our residential streets as cut-throughs to the highway. You know, Google Maps, Waze tells them that it's going to save 5 minutes to get off at 14B or 14C, come down our streets, and then eventually get back into the tunnel. The ideal solution is the state one, which is allowing us to do a form of congestion pricing where we would basically put in place a fee to be able to get off at 14B and 14C. And then if, you know, within an hour you're going to the Holland Tunnel, you're going to pay a toll to use our streets as a cut-through. But we do need the state to do that. So what are the things we can do in the interim? One thing we did that was very helpful was we banned left turns at 9th and Marin. By doing that, we significantly rerouted traffic around the direct part of Hamilton Park, which obviously is where kids are. And so that was a real success. But now Monmouth and 6th are in really tough positions. So a couple things we can do. Look to further restrict the light timing coming off 14B and 14C. Make those even smaller so that the app companies keep you on the highway. Dedicate our traffic enforcement divisions. So our traffic enforcement division, which will exist, can be at these intersections. They can be stopping traffic to ensure that it is, again, there's not incentives for people to take the cut-through traffic as well. And then look at bans on left turns on Monmouth Street and all along Columbus, not just in the mornings. That was a sort of pilot that the mayor put in place that has now expired, but doing that during Sunday evenings and Sunday afternoons as well. This still allows people to come to downtown, to come to Jersey City, to get off at these exits, but really trying to de-incentivize people who are using our roads as cut-through traffic.
I think the best way to think about the solution is to go to the app companies. Because again, the state is probably the biggest actor when it comes to making sure that this actually works and we can have the congestion pricing that's put into place, that we can actually work together with our law enforcement agencies. But I think the most interim thing that the mayor of Jersey City can do is talk to Google Maps and talk to Waze. Because these are companies that, you know, are using our infrastructure and saying to people, hey, this is the best way to get around town. And we can talk to these companies and say, listen, it is not appropriate for people to be cutting through our streets. The best way for you to tell people to get to New York City is to stay on the turnpike and to pay the additional tolls and to take the additional time. And there are ways that we have done that in the past, right? Whenever we have a big event, for instance, whenever we have the Jersey City Marathon, there are not people who are coming off that highway because the app companies know, hey, the city of Jersey City has said all these streets are going to be shut down. The second I send someone down there, they're going to be stuck for 2-3 hours. And so we can do the same exact thing when it comes to these companies and saying, listen, if you want information from us about what is happening on our streets, then in return, you have to make sure you are helping us out when it comes to our traffic problems. And I think that's a fair deal, right? Again, government is all about the give and take. It's about the leverage points that we have. The leverage we have with these companies is information. And so we can say to them, look, you want the information from us, then we want to make sure the information you're giving to these out-of-state drivers is making sure they're staying on these highways, and that is what they see as the fastest way to get into town.
So I agree with both of the gentlemen up here. Congestion pricing is probably the best, but it's a state issue that we have to deal with. All of the issues that Councilman Solomon spoke about are good. They make sense. Don't allow lefts. But at the end of the day, once people get off of that turnpike, they've got no choice but to figure their way through our neighborhood. So if it's not one street, it becomes another street. That's just the reality of it. It's great to pressure them. I hope they listen. But at the end of the day, because we've spoken about this before, they're about making money too. They're not doing it as a public service. So traffic enforcement, having motorcycle officers stationed when you get off of those different intersections, when you get off 14C, when you get off 14B, that in of itself at least puts a lot of people on notice. When they see that there's going to be enforcement, they're like, uh-oh, if I go this way now, what's going to happen to me? So the next time, they're more likely to stay on the turnpike. All the things are very, very difficult to do. And look, they're trade-offs. That traffic that we have is a trade-off because everyone up here is not going to stand by and allow that turnpike to be expanded. We know that's going to bring even more traffic and not solve the problem, but that would make the problem even worse. So we've got to live within the system that we have. There's no perfect solution to this. There's so many vehicles that drive through Jersey City to New York City to avoid paying additional dollars. They try to get off there to save 5 or 10 minutes of time. That's crazy. But everything we can do to slow every road up, to put bike lanes and things that slow the traffic up on all the major streets we can, that will be a bigger and bigger deterrent. But it's not an easy solution, and it's gotten worse and worse over the last 10 years, without a doubt.
Thank you. We have one more question. We could start with Mr. Ali. It's about City Bike, the bike share system. It currently covers downtown, Journal Square, some other areas fairly well as Hoboken, and it's expanding into the south as we speak. But even when that's done, there will still be some areas of town that have no coverage at all, notably parts of the west and northwest, especially the Western Heights. Would you support expanding it, and what would you do to bring that about, to get it to basically cover the entirety of Jersey City?
Yeah, I'm a big City Bike user. Some of you may have actually seen me use City Bike to get around town. I find it to be an extremely efficient way, particularly when there's traffic. If you are here in Journal Square around 5 o'clock, between 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock, it is impossible to move here. Like, literally, you cannot move your car more than like 1 mile per hour. And so usually when I have meetings down in City Hall and I'm leaving the office at 5 o'clock, I will literally hop on a City Bike, go down Bergen Avenue, go down Montgomery, and get to where I need to get to. So I'm a big believer in City Bike. I think it's extremely efficient. I think it's fantastic that you don't have to think about where you're parking your bike. You can pick up a bike in several different locations. And I think we do need to expand it. I think the best way, again, is to incentivize these companies to say, look, you're already taking advantage of our residents. You have all these different places that you have City Bikes in place. We need to make sure that you're expanding your coverage. I mean, this is exactly how we got them to the south side. There was so much usage of these bikes in certain parts of the city that the mayor was able to use that leverage to say, look, I need you to expand to other parts. But I think when we expand to these other parts, we also need to incentivize people in these areas to start using the City Bike. And so initially when City Bike came to Jersey City, there was a discount to be able to get that membership. And I know because I got one because of that reason, right? I was like, oh, it's going to be super cheap for me. This is cheaper than having a bike for me to get on the City Bike membership. We can do that same thing as we expand to different regions to incentivize users and increase the amount of membership across different parts of the city to make sure people know that this is an effective way to get around town. But on the same side of that, we need to make sure that we have the infrastructure that allows them to ride bikes safely. And one last point I want to put here is, I don't know if people notice this detail sometimes, but if you are ever on the bike lanes, you'll notice that some of the bike lanes actually have ponytails. And the reason they have that is because what you notice is not because of Tony, but it's because women actually are less likely to use bikes unless they feel like they're safe. And so having protected bike lanes actually drastically increases the amount of females who are actually riding bikes. This has been a study that's been shown across the board. And so if we want to increase the amount of gender parity within the people using bikes, we want to make sure that they're safe and connected all across the city.
So I would certainly meet with them, use leverage with them, incentivize residents to utilize them. If they don't want to offer discounts, see how we can get other corporations who serve our city to maybe come up with dollars to offer discounts. We definitely need them on the south side of the city. We've had them in places and they've been taken away because of not having enough usage of it. So I think that engaging with the community to get the community to understand it, neighborhood by neighborhood, to get them to understand it, to buy into it, to incentivize them to want to do it. I think that's all of the part of it. But there are several locations on my side of town, west side of town, south side of town that definitely need it. Incorporating in that a route, because if there's no route, having those cycles there will be counterproductive because individuals for their own safety are not going to utilize them. Obviously been a big supporter and big fan of the protected bike lanes, supporting them even in my own neighborhood when many of my neighbors were upset with me that I would not oppose them and supported them. So getting them, financially incentivizing people to want to utilize them, educating people on them, like a lot of people don't know and don't understand it. So the more that you let people know, the more that you assist them financially if they can't afford to do it, I think you get more usage of it. But yes, there are definitely parts of the city that are underserved by them now. We have to look at those same areas as we install them, the locations there. How do we also make sure that we have the linkages within the protected bike lanes and within the bike lanes to make sure that people will want to be able to utilize them or feel safe doing so?
Yes, I've been supportive of the City Bike Network from my position on the City Council, entire time on the council. Excited to see the current expansion, and as mayor, would fully support expanding it. There's a sort of little bit of a desert in that area north of the Holland Tunnel, but south of Hoboken, western part of the Heights, parts of West Side, all of which deserve the bike lanes. And I agree with what Commissioner O'Day just said of making sure that the expansion mirrors how you're expanding your protected bike network. So as you're expanding the city bike stations, you are expanding your bike network as well. And I think that combo will make a lot of sense. And then continuing to do the education piece, making sure that we are having the city officials, and gets to that broader expanded engineering department, out there going to community meetings, offering the discounted signups, and ensuring that we have as many signups in the City Bike Network as possible. So, thank you.
Okay, we are going to turn finally to closing statements. Before we do, I want to say we have a couple of extra minutes before our time runs out, so we're going to offer each of you 2 minutes for your closing statements, should you choose to do so. So I'll give you a minute to think about that. Before we do that, we just want to thank everyone who helped put this together, from the folks in both Bike JC and Safe Streets JC, lots of volunteers, the school district, everyone who made this possible. And to thank you all for coming, of course. Now we will turn to the first closing statement, starting with Mr. O'Day.
So it's been a pleasure being here today. I think it's a great issue. I think we've got great individuals that were moderating it today because they're all dedicated to the issues that we spoke about here today. I think that's always important. I joke, but I only half joke, that the first bike lane in Jersey City was in Lincoln Park. And at the time that bike lane was put in there, it was very controversial. And Kara, who came to us with it, gave good reasons. And one of the biggest reasons that it was is that it would help reduce speeding in Lincoln Park, because Lincoln Park was a throughway for people to get to the highway. So the people that own the casino and the park weren't happy, but it made sense. And it's been there, and we've had to redo it because it's been there so long, and repaint it and restripe it and make sure it's protected. So I've always been a strong advocate of that. Working with the community, we also, in my district, had the first traffic calming, bump outs, road diets on JFK Boulevard from Communipaw Avenue to Bond Street. Took longer than it should, was more frustrating than it should be, but again, I know and understand the issue. When it came to problems with the county, I was able to convince the county to apply for the Vision Zero grant. We got the Vision Zero grant, and I think that you would all admit that the county has done a 180-degree turn over the last 3 years when it comes to that issue, and I'll take a little bit of the credit for that, because I wasn't afraid to call them out, and I wasn't afraid to speak up, and I get to serve on that Vision Zero task force. So you have my commitment as mayor, someone who's always there, always willing to listen, always willing to work, that I'm committed to the goals and objectives of Vision Zero, and they will be a top priority for my administration as mayor. Thank you.
Alrighty, thank you all so much for the time. Again, thank you to Musa, Bill, and Christina, and our incredible moderators. So it's very funny that Bill mentioned Kara. So the very first political action I ever took in Jersey City was marching with the nascent Safe Streets Jersey City, at that time run by Kara Habrowski and Paul Bellin Boyer, on the west side. At that time, demanding Mayor Fulop adopt Vision Zero. It's 2015 or 2016, I forget which year exactly. And the reason that I came out was I had just had too many close calls personally, and had too many friends that had close calls personally. Had to have somebody just run through a red light, run through a stop sign, and literally you're dodging, and I'm going back to my old football days, and like just jumping out of the way to try to avoid it. And the reason why that issue is just so important. It is fundamentally life or death. And too often in our discussions, we sort of treat safe streets as not the crucial issue that it is. And as a councilman, I have been really proud of my record while acknowledging that there is so much more to do. When I started, there wasn't a single protected bike lane in downtown. Now they're on every single major road. We had basically no street safety improvements except those yellow signs that get run over. And now we've put in, since my time, dozens of stop signs, protected intersections like the one at York and Jersey. All of those that I know have saved people from serious crashes, from serious accidents, but it is not enough. And so as mayor, you have my firm commitment to be the Vision Zero mayor, to adopt what Hoboken has done so that we do not have deaths on our streets. It is doable, right? It's not just a slogan. Any single death that occurs on our streets is something that could have been prevented. It could have been prevented through engineering, through enforcement, through effort, and I will adopt the motto that every single time something like that happens, we're never going to create excuses. We will always dig deep and deliver a city that is safe. So I am committed to Vision Zero in Jersey City, and on November 4th, I ask for your vote to be our next mayor. Thank you.
I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. Thank our fantastic moderators and thank my fellow panelists. This is the last forum/debate on the circuit, so it's incredible that we've made it this far. And now in 1 week, we get to see the results of all the trials and tribulations we've done up here. When it comes to Vision Zero and when it comes to street safety, I think this is a critical issue when it comes to the culture of who Jersey City is. That if we want to be a city where people feel safe raising their families, we need to have a city where people feel safe crossing the street. Literally today, as I was canvassing right across from the middle school that I went to, I almost had someone who ran me over. And it was honestly kind of ironic because she pulled down her window after I crossed the street and said, "I'm planning to vote for you, so I'm not going to run you over." And I thought to myself, like, if she wasn't going to vote for me, would she have run me over? But there was a moment in time when I was crossing that street where I wondered, like, is it possible for me to be hit by this driver? And again, I think it goes back to enforcement. It goes back to culture. I think you need somebody in City Hall who can speak to the culture of Jersey City, who can speak to all the different generations of people in this city, who understand what it means to be from Jersey City, and also understand these new people who are coming into Jersey City. Because I think that we want to build a Jersey City that works for all of us. It's a Jersey City where you can live here no matter what your income is, no matter what your background is. Look, this city is the home of Ellis Island. There are so many families whose first footprint in America was in Jersey City. That address is 2 Communal Avenue, Jersey City, New Jersey. And I want to make sure that this is a place where everyone feels welcome. And right now, there are too many people who are being pushed out. There's too many people who can't afford to be here. Too many people who don't feel safe being here. The number one indicator of someone moving out of Jersey City is when their kids turn 5 years old. And I venture to say part of that is because of the schools, but part of that is because they just don't feel safe on our roads. And I hope on November 4th, you give me the opportunity to be your next mayor to help make it a safer place. Thank you.
Keep it going for all of our candidates. We want to thank all of them sincerely for coming here to address the issues that are so important to us. And although I'm sure I don't have to, I want to remind you all that a week from tomorrow is Election Day, and early voting has started already. Early voting already open. Thank you so much for coming.